Hey YouTube, Kira Qualia here, bringing you guys my Tachikaze standard deck profile for August 2018. This is the last deck profile from the Destructive Roar that I wanted to bring to you guys for the standard version of the decks. Might work on some premium deck profiles involving like the machining cards and a couple of the other units from the set in later deck profiles, but for now, finishing up the last standard deck before Champions of Asia comes out, which will be getting the Grand Blue, Dimension Police, and the Aquaforce support, so kind of to turn focus on those after. So let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So for the Tachikaze deck, I want to run 4 Ravenous Dragon Giga Rex, but only have 3 at the moment. Shoutouts to my friend Anthony as well for letting me borrow his Tachikaze deck for the deck profile. Like I said, I usually only build 1 deck from the sets now, so I rely on friends to gain access to all the other decks that I use for the deck profiles. So thanks to all of them for just helping me out. But like I said, what a run for this card. I'll show what grade 2 I'd remove for this card afterwards. But with this card, when it attacks, you put up to 1 card from the top of your deck. Face down is an equip gauge for each of your rear guards, and this unit gets plus 5,000 to the end of battle for each of your rear guards. So for those of you who don't know, the Tachikaze's new ability that they have is called Equip Gauge, where they basically place cards at the top of their deck face down underneath units, kind of like, you know, equip cards to use for different effects in the deck. And then the second effect of Giga Rex is you discard 5 Equip Gauge. 3 of your front row rear guards get plus 5,000 until the end of the turn. If your opponent's damage zone is 4 or less, you deal 1 damage to your opponent's vanguard. So a very powerful vanguard if you know how to set up your equip gauges properly, and then just with the fact that you can deal damage to them, it doesn't negate the trigger obviously, but you still have, you know, full-on pressure if you put them at 5 damage. And then with this card and the whole deck being an Excel deck, having multiple units getting ready for attacks is just all-out pressure that your opponent sometimes just can't handle with, you know, taking a damage and having to guard, whether it be 4 or 5 attacks later on. And also for Tyrant Death Rex. With this card, it's a great backup grade 3, but then if you also have to ride it on grade 3, you know, not the end of the world there. You do want Giga Rex as your main vanguard, but if you have Tyrant Death Rex, you still have abilities that can go off, and it's still an Excel unit as well. On vanguard or rear, when it attacks a vanguard, you Soul Blast 1, retire 1 other rear guard, choose one of your opponent's front row rear guards, and retire it. This unit gets plus 10 to the end of the battle for each equip gauge on the rear guard retired for the cost. So if you built up that rear guard and then killed it, it's a very powerful effect. And then being able to choose one of your opponent's rear guards on the front row, it can take care of an intercept or, you know, just something that they were going to use next turn against you. So taking care of those resources and the fact that it works on Vanguard or Rear Guard means that you can use Giga Rex as your main and then just call this card for backup with still powerful Rear Guard attacks. And if you get triggers, it just makes it much bigger. And then for the grade 2s, I run 4 Ravenous Dragon Mega Rex. For this card, it's your main grade 2. When it attacks a vanguard, you retire another rear guard, draw a card, and if this unit is on rear, you counterblast 1, put the top card of your deck face down as an equip gauge for this unit, and it gets plus 5 until the end of that battle for each equip gauge to this unit. So it's not a when placed, it's just a, you know, when it attacks. So good card to protect against your opponent and then just to reuse. Building up that equip gauge is very helpful for whether it be Death Rex or Giga Rex. So definite 4 of in the deck, and that draw power just helps as well for hand consistency, since you can invest a lot of your plays on the field for sure. And then I also run 4 Savage Raider. This most likely be the card I drop down to 3 if I wanted to put in a 4th Giga Rex. It's a very good card just for setting up the equip gauges, but like I said, could be just as powerful at 3 if you do want to just have that consistency to get into your 4 you know, Giga Rex. Or if you want to just keep it to 7, you could run 4 Giga Rex and take out one of the Tyrant Death Rex and just run 3 of this card. It's all situational depending on what you want for your lineup. But with Savage Raider, when placed from hand, you may put the top card of your deck face down as an equip gauge for one of your other rear guards, and when it attacks a vanguard, you may move any number of equip gauge to one of your rear guards to one of your rear guards. So just being able to adjust your equip gauges, whether you want to, you know, move a unit and then not miss out on losing the equip gauge, or then, you know, just have another one built up so you can make use of cards like Death Rex. This card is just great setup for adjusting your cards on the field for sure, and then just adding additional equip gauges also. And then I also run 2 Temp Mammoth. During the battle attack, when your opponent would call a Guardian from his or her hand, he or she must call 2 or more at the same time. So Perfect Guard's not going to cut it. If you build this card up with enough power, whether it be with triggers, Giga Rex, you name it, and then they just guard 1 card. If they're at 5 damage, they got to really invest with putting down their hand to stop this attack for sure. And at the end of the battle, that attack, discard a gauge equipped to this unit if you cannot retire it. So you want to make sure you also set up your equip gauges on this card, or otherwise you'll miss out on a potential intercept unit that you have on the field later on as well. So remember that. And also, I run 2 Assault Dragon Blight Tops for the final grade 2 lineup. When it would be retired from rear, you may counterblast 1. If you do, return 2 gauges equipped to this unit to your hand. So equip gauges come from the top of the hand, so it's just good resources to get back. You don't know what the cards are until you set them, obviously, but most of the time, if you're just going to end up using the equip gauges, or just go for the kill and then lose them, you return them to your hand. Just helps with so much consistency for your hand later on, especially if the card's equipped were either big shields, perfect guards, you name it. And that is it for the grade 2s. We'll now move on to the grade 1s. I run 4 Sonic Noah, probably one of your best grade 1s to run in the deck. When it boosts a rear guard, you put the top card of your deck face down as an equip gauge for the boosted unit, and that works on rear guard. And when it attacks, or the attack that it boosted hits a vanguard, retire one of your other rear guards and draw a card. So it works with cards like Blight Tops that we know rely on that retire effect, and then just adding cards to hand. It's just real good consistency for setting up your equip gauges, or just drawing cards and getting rid of rear guards, whether you wouldn't want them to be retired from like Kagero effects or something like that. Just making full use of retiring is basically the main thing that Tachikaze is known for, obviously. And then I also run 4 Vicious Claw Dragon Lacerator, sorry if I butchered that just now. When placed from hand, put the top card of your deck face down as an equip gauge for this unit, and when it would be retired from rear, you may Soul Blast 1. If you do, return up to 1 gauge equipped to this unit to your hand. So once more, good recycling, just like Blight Tops. Just if you're going to retire this effect, you don't really minus too much from the card. Like a lot of the old Tachikaze cards required having cards put back to your hand. The use of the equip gauges just means you can add the cards back, and then just use those resources instead of the ones that are kill, which might even be better resources than the ones you had on the field. And I also run 4 Winged Dragon Scaptero with this card. Kind of still like an old school effect for sure, but when it is retired from rear during your turn, you can counterblast 1, return this card to your hand. So not so much reliant on the equip gauge effect, but still good on the fact that it basically allows you to add it back to your hand, then just reuse it for the boost after you use it for like the retire of a cost. So just remember, it has to also be on your turn. So if your opponent retires it, you don't get the search, obviously, but like I said, most of the time it's just going to be used when you're using your own skills anyway. And then lastly, for the grade 1s, 2 Assist Taupe T-Rex. This is the 9K grade 1 that are known for the Excel decks. Doesn't have a shield, but still a great ride target. So if your opponent attacks with an 8K, they either have to call a boost or rely on the trigger so they can hit this unit. And most of the time that's what I end up using it for, or calling it to rear. It really serves no means in your hand except the discard cost for a perfect guard. So you want to make sure that you make full use of getting rid of this card. Otherwise, because I said, like, there are plenty of times when like Nova Grappler or this deck, and probably future on Excel decks, where this card just pays no mind to your hand otherwise and just better off on the field. And then for the grade 0s, I run 1 Dragon Egg. This is your grade 0 starter, obviously, like all the other ones, for the draw. And then for the trigger lineup, I'm running 8 critical currently, but the biggest debate on what I wanted to do with this deck is if I wanted to run the rainbow with the front triggers, or go full front trigger. I guess it's just, preference. If you can get your Excel unit set up, then obviously the means to go for the front triggers, just with more pressure with some of your units, like Temp Mammoth. Having those bigger numbers definitely does help with this card, when it means your opponent's going to call more than 2 cards. They have to call 2 anyway, but if they have to call, more to guard with that shield, it's just an extra benefit for sure for them to get rid of their bigger shields and some of their lower ones in their hand, so some of your bigger attacks can hit. But I have the 8 critical in the deck for now. Like I said, this deck especially with that pressure, it's debatable on what you want to run for the lineup. I think we might try, like maybe 5 critical and then 3 front. That might even be a little more consistent. The numbers vary greatly with this deck depending on what you want to do. I would say still run criticals, obviously, but if you want to run fronts, 3 might just be that lucky number that you drive check, and then it definitely will come in handy for that situation. But that's the biggest debate I had when building this deck and when discussing it with my friend Anthony and what he wanted to run. But still staple is the 4 Archbird. It's your perfect guard. Doesn't take any of your important grade 1 spots, especially in this deck, because those cards are very important for a lot of your plays. So running the perfect guard draw trigger is definitely staple there. And for Savage Shaman, just your heal trigger. Once again, got to run 4 heal in the deck. But like I said, the biggest debate was the critical and the front trigger lineup. But that it can also be, player preference depending on what that number. There's no wrong number you can run, but definitely does help when you're discussing what you want to run. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Like I said, this is the last standard deck from the Destructive Roar, and then we'll be moving on to Champions of Asia or from Asia, I can't remember. But a very fun set. I'll be building Dimension Police from that set while my friends will be working on the other 2, so look forward to those deck profiles as well. Once again, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and until next time, Kira Qualia out.